got him. Oh, good fish. That didn't take long. Get him out of the weeds. In that clear water, they'll just dig in those weeds. Look at him digging. Oh, come on. He's digging in those weeds. He's in them. Oh, he got me in the weeds. And that's a good fish. I'll pull him out. Come on, baby. Oh, there he is. Oh, look at the size of that smallmouth. Oh, folks, that's a big smallmouth. Right there. Yeah! What in the world did you do, buddy? Huh? Look at that, on a Wacky Senko. Jeez. No wonder you were fighting so hard. Let me turn the boat where you can see this fish. Been throwing top water all morning long, and you got to realize too, we're in June, towards the middle end of June, but our fish, look how fat that smallie is. Our fish this time of year start moving up to spawn. Look at that, beautiful fish. We'll let her go. Thank you, bud. Well, you know, normally in the springtime, you can catch quite a few fish on some top water and things like that. I've been throwing all morning long, I started throwing this thinking that, but it might be just a little bit early for these fish to start hitting this bait. This bait is normally really good, but with the sun coming up, and this is the first time I've hit the lake this year, I'm not seeing any fry. When I'm starting to see the fry and the bluegill out, this Rio Rico, the Rico in the formula color, is awesome because it looks like a bluegill, and a lot of times they'll hit it. Wasn't catching fish on it. Fish are being a little bit finicky, and all I did was go to my Wacky rig. And this lake is tough. A lot of guys will throw their Senkos, and I do too, weedless, and there's a time and a place for everything. Basically what I've done is take a 5-inch Senko, hooked it on an owner hook. I'm using a 12-pound test leader with my nanofill. This is a 2/0 owner Wacky style hook. And then you get the Wacky tool, you hook yourself up, and you're good to go. He kind of slid down the bait a little bit on the O-ring. We'll slide it down a little bit. It's hard to get it to move a little bit on that O-ring, but I've got it. So you want it to where it'll fall really nice. But man, this time of year in open pockets, you can't beat that rig. They love that Wacky style look. So we're gonna go around, play around, see what we can't find here at Fool's Hollow Lake. It's a fun lake. The water temperature's up around 68, 72 degrees in that neighborhood. The fish are just moving up to spawn from what I'm seeing, but we'll get around, we'll take a good look. The water's actually clear in this lake this year, but it is low, I will say that. What I'm gonna be looking for out here is I'm gonna be looking for bare spots, and I'm also gonna be looking at the end of the weed line. And then as we get towards the back of the lake, I'm sure that it's gonna be full of weeds. So we may have to change up and go to the other rig, maybe a little Texas rig or something like that. Well, I can see the bottom pretty good right here. So I'm kind of hitting the edge of the weeds, but we'll also look for bare spots up on the front. You really have to, it really pays this time of year to have a good pair of polarized sunglasses. And I've said this a million times, especially if you're gonna be doing any sight fishing. And what I mean by sight fishing, I don't always mean just bed fish. We've caught roamers. You know, roaming fish is something I really love to catch. And those are fish that you just see roaming up the bank. And so I'll try to catch those as well. But a lot of it is a good pair of polarized sunglasses. Now I know that when the light level's really high, that people like to go to the smoke colored glasses, and those are great glasses, believe it or not, during the summer and you're just fishing, keep the light level out of your eyes. But man, when you're trying to see, you without a doubt want to make sure that you try to throw yourself a good pair of ambered glasses on. I use the copper amber glasses from Costa. One thing to remember about doing this kind of fishing, when the fish move up and start making beds, and you have a weed line like we have right here, a lot of times you'll have your small fish up there, your little males, making the nest and everything. But out here on the edge of the weed line, I can see rocks and I can see all that on the edge of the weed lines where your bigger fish might be hanging out waiting to move up. So you definitely always want to try both. Going for it. Ooh, that one's catchable. We found a catchable fish. We'll catch him on a drop shot and call it a day. One thing I love about doing this kind of fishing is if the water's clear enough, providing the water's clear enough, I can go down, I can throw my Senkos in the pockets of weeds, or I can turn around and fish for some of these bass that are on beds or roaming. I love it. This time of year is a lot of fun. Got it. On that scorpion bait. That's a nice smallmouth. Little fool's hauling make smallmouth bass. Come on now. That makes it so much fun right there. Doesn't, oh, come on now. All right. A lot of times, these fish just clobber that bait. Right in the mouth. Nice, beautiful smallmouth bass. It's a male sitting up on the bed. You know, ooh, almost lost that rod. But that scorpion bait works great. And what it is, it's the quail tail. Everybody keeps asking me, where do I find the scorpions? That's actually the color. It's the color of the bait, but it's made by Cactus Wren outdoors. It's just a little 4-inch, 5-inch little curl-tail worm, but it's in that scorpion color. And you can see it real good in clear water, and so can the bass. And I love it. I've caught them all over in Arizona on that one color. Haven't really needed another color. One thing I will say about this kind of fishing that we're doing today, I don't want to really call it junk fishing, but it's kind of what we're doing. We're just going down and throwing different baits and seeing what we can find to catch fish on. But I picked up the drop shot. But this time of year in the spring, when I know there's a lot of fish, or there's going to be fish up shallow in the weeds, on beds, and I know I can probably get them to bite that drop shot, I'll move my line size up to about 8 pound. I'll use a fluorocarbon, but I'll use that 8 pound because I can get them in the weeds with that 8 pound and still kind of drag them up a little bit, because they'll just the bigger ones will get caught up in the weeds, and you can pull them out with that 8 pound. Go 6 pound, you're playing with fire a little bit with all the rocks and things like that, but that 8 pound really makes a difference. Medium action rod, Johnny Moore's carbon light rod, and then get yourself a good reel. But that's definitely huge for me. Now what I'm doing is I've got all my baits out, obviously, that I'm throwing between the drop shot, the Senko, the top water, the sight fishing bait. I'm basically going down the bank and throwing this 5-inch Senko and doing some looking, and I'll toss right alongside. I did have a hit on that Senko and I lost him, but it was just a little fish anyway. But so I'm doing a lot of looking while I'm throwing the Senko out in front of me, and I'll watch that line too. So try to pay attention to the line. I've seen some big fish in here swimming around, roaming. So maybe we'll luck out and catch a few of those way up front of us where we're not spooking them with the boat. And that's real important when you get a lake highly pressured like Fool's Hollow up here in the White Mountains, and you have a lot of campers and you have a lot of fishermen on this lake. If you can make that cast initially without the fish seeing you, you got a better chance of catching it. Hey folks, for my tip of the week, one thing that we all have is scuff marks all over our rub rails. A lot of times when you're hitting docks, you get the rubber that comes off the dock that actually hits your rub rail. And one thing I have found that really helps me a bunch is just an SOS pad with a little hot water. And what I like to do is just rub it real lightly across there, just like so. And we'll take that white right off there from the other dock. Just kind of rub it real lightly across there. And what it does is it pulls all that rubber that's actually on your rub rail off, then wipe it down with a towel. And then you want to take your slick mist, and you take your slick mist from Lucas Oil, you put it on there and just wipe it off just like so, and it comes right off. Look how we took all that white right off there. And that'll keep it shiny and looking new for you again, especially on my brand new Z21 Nitro. I'm doing everything I can to take care of this bad boy, and I'll tell you what, those docks can really scuff up your rub rail, and this is a good way to take care of your rub rail on your boat. Hey folks, I want to go over just a few of the basic lures that I like to bring out this time of year to Fool's Hollow Lake. And I've been pretty successful on them throughout the years. First off is a Senko or the Sticko, and I'll rig that Wacky style in open water, and of course I'll also rig it weedless when I get in the weeds. And there's a lot of weeds in this lake, so you have to have both of them pretty much rigged up. The other thing, of course, is you don't ever want to leave home without it, the drop shot. A jig is another great tool this time of year to catch fish on, but bring plenty of them, because with all the rocks we have, you're going to get a lot of them hung up, but you will catch a lot of fish on them. You know, when it comes to my top waters, I'm going to throw my Rio Rico or my Rico. I like that formula color right there. Up here it works great. You got to remember, we don't have shad on these lakes, so the forage is more like bluegill, baby bass, rainbow trout, fish like that. And if you stay with those kind of colors, you're going to do a lot better up here on the White Mountain Lakes. And then when the wind starts to blow, you want to make sure you always have your jerk bait ready. Okay, you want to have a nice jerk bait. I use a Rapala, and you know, you can use whatever jerk bait you like. Just make sure that you're throwing something that's got a little green, a little, you know, rainbow trout pattern. Like I said, something like that will work really good up here on this mountain. And one of my all-time favorites, of course, when they start busting it or start really going after baits and things like that, is my black buzz bait. That's a laser eye buzz bait, believe it or not. It's got the big blade on it, and it really works good. I use a chartreuse tail, but you can bring it across top of those weeds and just whack those fish on that. And if you get here early enough in the spring where you can see them on beds, of course you want to make sure that you bring something you can see to throw on the bed, like a rage craw, something like that, and you'll catch a lot of fish on it. But right now we're in that in-between stage, towards the end of the spawn, and we are going into more of a summer pattern. So things are kind of in between. We're catching them out on the ends of weed patches. We're catching them up shallow, and you can find a lot of those roamers. Now on these local lakes like this, these shallow lakes here in the White Mountains, you'll see a lot of roaming fish. If you're in clear water, you'll see those roaming fish. Now here's the deal. It's very important to realize that these fish you don't want to throw right on top of. If you see them roaming, you throw way up about 10 feet in front of them. That's how you catch those fish. You don't catch those fish by throwing right on top of them. So anytime you're throwing a Senko or a Sticko or a drop shot or anything like that to catch those fish, you want to be sure you throw way up in front of them, because when they're roaming up and down the bank, if you toss something right on top of them, it spooks them, they leave. So something for you to think about on that. But these are the baits I like to throw when I come up here, so make sure you pick some up and give them a try. Got him. Not a big fish, but I knew he'd come back and get that. I saw that fish on a rock. He showed himself, and he got bit by the scorpion. Come on, Smalley. Man, I can't believe all the smallmouth in Fool's Hollow Lake all of a sudden. Usually it's all largemouth. Now we're catching smallies. I ain't complaining. All right, dude, you're caught. You're done. Come on. All right. Thank you. That fish actually came after my little Sticko that I was throwing out there on him, and I noticed he was a little bit smaller, and he was going after it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll throw that little drop shot in on him. You just got to be aware of your surroundings when you're going down through this area. I will say one thing about Fool's Hollow you got to be really careful with, especially if you're going to bring your big boats, is, well, first and foremost, 10 horsepower limit. So you can't run your big motors if you have a big bass boat like I got. This beautiful Nitro Z21 will not fire up in this lake. It's against the law, but you can run your trolling motor all day long. And the lake's, not that big that you can't get around it, but you also have to be careful of all the rocks underneath the surface, because there's going to be certain areas where the water is a little bit dingier. I know the water, and sometimes it can get a little hairy in some areas, but most of the lake is fine. But if you look over here, if the water gets any kind of dinge to it at all, it's going to be hard to see some of these rocks, and you'll go right over top of them with your boat and scrape them up. So yeah, you definitely want to be really careful when you're getting up shallow. And a lot of times that's how we have to catch our fish here, is because they'll hide under the weeds. If they're not shallow a lot of times, they'll be up in the weeds. But this lake pretty much primarily is a shallow lake, unless you get around the dam area where it's really deep. But up where we're headed now, it's going to be a big old shallow flat, so you can just fish across the whole flat if you want. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to head up that way, try a few techniques and see if we can't catch some more fish. But I got to be honest with you, man, I'm seeing a lot of smallmouth in here. I've seen more smallmouth than I have largemouth today, and that's just looking. So maybe we'll get into some largemouth territory. They like the weeds, smallmouth like the rock. You got the best of both worlds here, and that's what you're gonna fish when you come. So you can fish for smallmouth or largemouth. Lots of fun. It's I think they said it was 109 or something like that down in the valley today, and it's right now up here, it's probably 80 degrees, so it's beautiful. That time. You turkey. Look at that fish. I threw jerk bait in there. Kept roaming up and down the bank. I finally caught you. Finally caught you. He's blind in one eye. That's the reason why you're missing it. He's blind in one eye. All right, buddy, get back down there. We finally caught us a largemouth bass. Little Fool's Hella Lake bass. I had just got done throwing everything in there at him. I originally started with this bait, and then I went with the jerk bait, and he started turning around and following it. Put his lips almost right on the back of the bait, twitched it, and nothing happened. Went with the drop shot, but it's a little bit deep. It falls into the weeds too far. So I went back to this and caught him. Hey, we'll take those kind of fish all day long. You know, the cool thing about living here is during the summer, it's so beautiful. It's t-shirt weather, and you can still bass fish. And that's what I've always loved about living up here in the beautiful White Mountains. Come on up, take a trip, enjoy the White Mountains, and until next time we'll see you on the water, I'm Johnny Johnson.